Welcome to GIS 311. This is day 2. Couple reminders. Please utilize your tent card. I collected them at the end of the last class, or I will. You'll be creating a new tent card in class if you don't have yours or if I don't have yours. And then a reminder, please leave them at your desk when you leave, so that I can pick them up. I use them to help me remember names. In class, you're going to log into the computer, and I'll post up the directions again. By now, everybody should be able to log in on their own, log into ArcGIS Online, and access ArcPro, whether you're using a laptop of your own, your in-class, the classroom computers, whatever you happen to be using. Our agenda for today is as shown here. It's a lot shorter lecture in class and online. So this lecture that I'm doing now, you're listening to, will be much shorter than last week's. In addition, the in-class portion will be strictly demos, or I should say demos and answering questions to help you on your deliverables. This is a review. Hopefully now, if I were to ask you in a pop quiz, say, give me your definition of GIS, this is something that might pop into your head. Capturing, storing, manipulating, analyzing, managing, and presenting data, usually in the form of maps. This would be a great 30-second elevator speech, as they're called. And then you should also remember that there's 2 types of data. If you're always going to be asked in an interview to let them know what kind of data you've worked with: vector data and raster data. And you should know the differences, and we'll talk about that in class. In addition to me mentioning it now, vector data is points, lines, and polygons, and raster data is the pixel variety, much like cameras, or what cameras produce, JPEGs, and what we produce with our screenshots, which are mostly PNGs. In addition to what you learned last week about data, usually known as tabular data and attribute data, attribute data is generally defined as an additional information about the spatial features. An example would be schools. The actual location of the schools is the spatial data, and then additional data such as the school name, level of education taught, student capacity, etc. would make up the attribute data. And then within these 2 data types, it enables GIS to be an effective problem-solving tool through spatial analysis. Another thing you should remember is GIS is more than just software. People and methods are combined with geospatial software and tools to enable spatial analysis, manage the large data sets, and display information in a map or graphical form. And that's actually extracted from 1999 Caitlin Dempsey in the GIS Lounge. On this screen, I'm displaying a particular type of data. You should know what type of data it is. And in addition, you should know what is represented by A, B, C, and D. I'll give you a hint. The layers themselves are as they would show up in the map, or the contents, as well as the catalog. We have cities, counties, states, and streets here. So be sure you know what A, B, C, and D are, and then what type of data this is. Before you leave, this is kind of a fast forward to the end of the in-person class. Before you leave, you'll probably have this completed. I highly recommend that you properly eject your USBs. Please sign off and out of the computers and then restart them, and bring up your name tent to the front, or just leave it in your seat. Either way is fine, just don't take it with you. What we're looking at here is a very tiny version of Arc Pro. There's a map in the middle. This is the map that you'll be creating this week with Lab X. On the left, very tiny, you'll see the word map, and then we'll see cities, streets, counties, and states. These correspond to the catalog, and within the catalog there's data, and the data is represented in this mapping area. And again, we have cities, counties, streets, and states. I didn't say them in the right order, but it actually doesn't matter. These are listed alphabetically over here. This data is technically not in the map. It's more of a connection. You can think of a dotted line going from the data items to the location of the data. And we'll talk about that more in the demos during class. A blown up version of this is up here. This word right here is folders. I produced this up on top to make it a little bit bigger. In the folders, you will have a project. You will have your raw data. Within raw data, Lab X data, and then the cities, counties, states, and streets. Looking at the bigger picture in Windows, this is what your directory is going to look like. Obviously, this is, you might have a different quarter and a different year. However, you will have, at the end of Lab X, you'll have a folder for helpful files within your directory. You'll have a folder for labs within your directory. And then within labs, you'll have a specific user ID LabX directory. Within that LabX directory will be two other folders. A LabX project folder, which is right here, and a raw data LX, which stands for LabX folder. Within the project folder, there's a backups folder, a GP messages folder, a user ID LabX proj, or PROJ for project, geodatabase, GDB, an import log, and an index folder. In the raw data LabX folder, you'll have Lab GIS 311 LabX data, which is actually represented right here as well. Within that will be these four data items. And you'll also have a LabX data zip. This zip produced this LabX data by extracting it. And you'll understand that more when you complete LabX following the directions. This is a different view. Going into Windows of LabX data, this is what the data looks like. In Arc Pro, the data looks like this. Very neat cities, counties, states, and streets. In Windows, it isn't smart enough to know that all of these items named cities represents a city's shapefile. So cities are all one shapefile. And then again, counties, etc. creates this shapefile, etc. States and streets. So multiple files, sometimes 3 or 4, up to 9, will be necessary to represent streets. So let me just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 here to represent streets in Arc Catalog. Whereas in Windows, it's 7 different files, which is why in LabX you will learn how to make sure that these extensions, such as DBF, PRJ, SBN, etc., are showing in Windows, so you can tell what specific file extensions are on each of these. Learning Plan Week 1. You have all, hopefully, completed this learning plan and submitted it to Canvas. If you haven't, that is something that you should get done this week. These are items you should do during the week, not in class time. In class time, that should be left to the labs because the learning plans are rather simple. So you would have completed these 4 portions of Learning Plan Week 1. This is also a reminder, please accept the assignments when you receive them from me and ArcGIS Online. Please. Moving forward to this week, or week 2, you will accept the assignments when you receive them from me. And this week there are only 2, symbolizing map layers and labeling map features. In addition, on this slide, I've added a screenshot of what it should look like when you submit proof of completion. You should first search for the specific learning plan. In this case, 311 Week 2 will help you find 311 Week 2 plan. Once you find that plan using the search button right here, you'll be able to get your name and the learning plan at the very top, showing that you completed it 100%. You take a screenshot just like I did here, save the screenshot, and this is what you'll submit for proof that you completed Week 2 learning plan. And then throughout the course, you'll complete different learning plans depending on the lab. These 2 items in the learning plan will help you prepare for lab 1. Or excuse me. Well, it'll be lab 1 and lab X, actually. Last week, in week 1, I displayed this map and explained that I wasn't too impressed with it because it wasn't labeled properly. I couldn't tell exactly where the water was, and it was just a little confusing. So I wanted to bring in a different map of the similar, nearly identical area and mention some things that this map does a lot better. First of all, this is made by NPR. I'm thinking this one, it is Al Jazeera right here. So Al Jazeera needs some help with their maps, or at least they did in 2022. But NPR is doing very, very well. This is a properly designed map with proper symbols and labels, especially in comparing it from week 1. No legend is necessary because everything is labeled properly. Notice the use of lighter colored text and lines, so it's not as bold and in your face as the items from Ukraine. Ukraine is the topic here, and that's why they are much more bold and you can see them more clearly. They're emphasized more. There's a very subtle scale bar. The Black Sea is labeled properly using italic with a little bit darker blue. And I really like the use of a globe for the locator map. The only thing I probably would have changed on this is perhaps emphasized Russia a little bit by making that bold. So you could definitely see where Russia was and maybe align this line that separates Belarus from Russia, perhaps. I'm not sure. Generally a much better map than last week's that I showed you, where this is just random. Quickly, these are our class days. The lecture you're watching now is in advance of week 2, and we will have the in-person portion 3rd of April. In this case, just know that it's week 2. This lecture may be used for a different course, so don't go off the 3rd of April, but just know that it's week 2. And I just happen to put these dates up for now, the quarter that I'm making this video. In person, in the classroom, Pinkerton 131, I'll do some demonstration of some skills that you'll utilize. Beginning day 2, talk about the LabX deliverables. I'll show you some things about LabX and other items. You'll be able to ask general syllabus or any questions you have, questions about ArcPro steps, because we're getting into the detailed portion of data management. And then what is due by next class? My recommendation is to check the Canvas lecture or just go to Canvas. The Canvas lecture is for those that need some explaining. So usually only a 15-minute video that explains in detail everything that's due. There's no test on whether you take the video, watch the video or not, but I provide it so that you know what is due if you have trouble figuring it out by looking at Canvas. That way there's no question about what is due. In the classroom, there is some Easter candy, and part of it is because I'm into Easter and I think it's fun to have candy in the classroom, but most of it is to remind us to not have pastel symbology. That is, no Easter maps. Easter's great if you celebrate or if you don't. Easter candy's great whether you do or you don't. So please, no default Easter symbology in our maps. And what I mean by that is Esri and ArcPro symbolize your layers as you put them in the maps using a default pastel palette. A palette is like a set of colors. They use pastels. So in every map you submit to me, you will get rid of the pastel colors and put in a more appropriate color. So you'll be symbolizing, adding better colors to the map on every map and layout that you submit to me. On day 2, you should verify, especially if you're using a personal computer, that you have your computer and access to ArcPro. You should set up the Big IP client if you need it. That's if you ever using your own computer, and make sure you know what is due. Again, that is in Canvas. Folder connection versus data. I am going to go over this again. I talked about it last week, but a folder connection is like an imaginary line from your data in your map and your layouts to the data. And this will be a demo in class. I won't be going over that topic right now in this lecture. Videos. So these videos you probably found on my YouTube page. That's the easiest place for me to store them, upload them. So you will go here. The links are all provided in Canvas, so you don't have to search for them. But if you want to find all of the videos for 311, you may go to my homepage, which is right up here, and then playlists. So you would either go to my homepage, which is right here, and then click playlists, or just with that playlist. I pulled up this map. It's an interesting Esri story map. You'll be creating one towards the end of GIS 311. And this one is interesting because it seeks to visualize the human reach across the globe in 8 different areas. And those are across the top. Those are population density, cities 1950 and 2020, Earth at night, roads, air routes, shipping routes, undersea cables, and the human footprint. Now we'll look at this in class very quickly, but I just wanted to give you a glimpse of it here, and also the link in the PowerPoint slide deck so you can go and check it out yourself. This would be a great map of the day. In fact, I think it was, and I've borrowed it and now use it myself. A student actually submitted this at one point in time, and they earned points for the map of the day. back to Lab X. You will start Lab X at the beginning of week 2. That you will focus on data management. You'll create your first map and your first layout. And you will provide submissions or deliverables to me. And the deliverables are in Canvas. If you jump over to Canvas, you can see what is due. And again, if you can't comprehend what is due based on Canvas, if you're just not used to it yet, feel free to check out the Canvas video that accompanies this week 2 lecture. This slide will be up during class, during our in-person session for day 2 or week 2, so that students know what the end results should be. The symbology will be different because I ask you to choose something different, but I just want you to be aware that there are no mysteries. I'm telling you and showing you exactly what you need to produce by the end of the Lab X, and then you'll submit it. And by following the directions exactly, this is what you'll produce. And then again in class, I'll give you an ArcPro catalog live demo and students can ask questions. I will run through some of the aspects of Lab X and then students can get to work on Lab X. So this would be the end of the lecture. In class, of course, we'll go till 8 p.m.-ish. You may stay longer, actually. If you want to stay beyond 8:35, that's your prerogative. Feel free to do so. At the end, I'm going to remind you again to please leave your tent cards so that I can use them to learn all your names. I give myself a little quiz after you leave, trying to put face to names. And that concludes the day 2 online lecture portion. I look forward to seeing you in class for day 2.